Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Power of Daily Practice, How Creative and Performing Artists, and Everyone Else, Can Finally Meet Their Goals, by Eric Maisel, Ph.D., narrated by Daniel Henning. Introduction. In this book, I want to help you make sense of a simple idea that can make a big difference in your life. It's the idea of daily practice. Daily practice, as I'll explain it, is as much about paying attention to your life purpose choices as it is about getting something done. If your daily practice were just the way you got your novel written, grew adept at yoga, calmed yourself through meditation, paid good attention to your health, or built your online business, that would be valuable enough. But it is really much more than that. It is an invaluable way to make daily meaning and to live your life purposes fully. I would also like to introduce you to Curism, a contemporary philosophy of life that I've been developing over the past 50 years. I won't say very much about Curism in this book, as this is a hands-on volume about daily practice, not a book about philosophy. But if the little I do say piques your interest, please visit curism.com to learn more. Curism presents a comprehensive, coherent, and thoroughly modern philosophy that addresses the exact challenges you and I face. I think you'll find it an interesting and maybe important take on life. But back to daily practice. Let's start with the simple idea that there are likely things you want to get done. Many people want to get a particular thing done that requires them to show up in a daily or a regular way. It might be anything from building their online business to writing their novel, from exercising their body to playing their musical instrument, from maintaining recovery from an addiction to building up their health after an illness. Most people have several of these to-do things that would greatly benefit from daily or regular attention. At the same time, people find creating and maintaining a daily practice very hard to do. In working with creative and performing artists, first as a therapist and for the last 30 years as a creativity coach, I've encountered countless clients who want to get to their creative work in a regular way and who can't seem to manage to do that. They can always point to the culprit: too much busyness, not enough time, too many distractions and interruptions, and so on. But in their heart of hearts, they know that they could be doing a better job of showing up. What is preventing them from doing the thing that they would love to be doing, or the thing that they really need to be doing? A daily practice may sound like too much regimentation. In fact, it is the path to freedom. Freedom is not given to us by anyone. We have to cultivate it ourselves. It is a daily practice. Thich Nhat Hanh. There are many reasons for their difficulties. Their thoughts are likely not supporting their intentions. The thing they mean to do may be harder than they wish it were. Positive results do not accumulate fast enough to provide ongoing motivation. They have doubts about the meaningfulness of the thing they intend to be doing. They feel merely interested in the thing rather than genuinely devoted to it, and many more. The list of reasons why it's so hard to maintain a daily practice is very long, and we'll address 18 of these challenges in Part 3 of this book. In the face of these many challenges, having a daily practice can help. What do I mean by having a daily practice? I'm guessing that while it's possible you have never spelled out the idea of daily practice, you nevertheless have an intuitive understanding of what the idea might mean. Consider the following scenarios. When someone says that she maintains a spiritual practice, we have an intuitive sense of what that person means and what that practice might entail. We envision her engaging in certain activities in a ceremonial way, whether that is lighting candles or sitting meditatively. We expect that she spends a certain amount of time every day, probably first thing each morning, formally engaged with her practice. And we picture her practice informing all aspects of her life, such that, for instance, when a crisis occurs, she uses her belief set, about an afterlife, say, and her techniques, like prayer or meditation, to see her through it. Likewise, if someone tells us that he is training for a marathon, a prize fight, or a high-altitude climb, we immediately get a picture of what that likely entails. We expect that he exercises every day, even on days that he doesn't want to, that he watches his diet and passes on the hot fudge sundaes even though he craves them, and that he visualizes success and in other ways talks himself into the right frame of mind. We picture him taking charge of his mind and his body and engaging in a goal-oriented process that naturally includes pushing himself in ways that on many days he might hate. Martial artists provide us with another model. We picture their formality, the way they bow when they enter the martial arts studio and when they face an opponent before a match. We picture their intensity, the way they shout at the right moment, the way they drive themselves, the way they focus on a given move and a given routine. We picture the value system by which they operate, which revolves around the honorable use of force, and which sanctifies self-control, including the self-control to walk away rather than to fight. Then there's the path of the dedicated thinker, someone who lives for intellectual problems to solve and whose main meaning investments have to do with unraveling the laws of the universe, finding cures for diseases, or inventing ever-better mousetraps. We picture a self-directed person who takes it upon himself to pick his path, even if it runs counter to the path his peers are following. To bite into his problem as a starving man bites into a sandwich, and to demonstrate a resolve and a tenacity that are periodically punctuated by joyous shrieks of "Eureka!" when the right answers come. And what if someone tells us that she has spent a lifetime battling for the release of political prisoners? In our mind's eye, we see her engaged in a dedicated, daily way with an enterprise that she feels is important, persevering in the face of setbacks and indifference. We don't picture her smiling much. We don't picture her activist life punctuated by a great many successes. But we understand why she's bringing every ounce of fortitude she can muster to this enterprise, why she values spending her time on Earth in this way. Daily practice is the path to freedom. It is also the path to excellence. I know you've heard it 1,000 times before, but it's true. Hard work pays off. If you want to be good, you have to practice, practice, practice. Ray Bradbury. And what if we met a woman at a cocktail party and learned that she had written and published 20 novels and 30 nonfiction books? Certain thoughts about how she must live her life would immediately come to mind. We would picture her chatting easily and regularly, maybe even every day, with marketplace players like agents, editors, and publicists. We would see her attending book signings, giving interviews, and traveling in support of her books. If she somehow contrived to avoid all of that, we would still be pretty sure about the following: that whatever else she did or didn't do on a given day, she would be doing some writing. In each instance, we intuitively understand what's going on. But for us to create and maintain our own daily practice, we need more than an intuitive understanding. This book provides that more. First, in Part 1, I'll identify and describe the 20 elements that make up a daily practice. In Part 2, we'll examine a wide variety of daily practices. In Part 3, we'll look at how to handle the many challenges to practice that regularly arise. With this guidance, you'll be able to create your own daily practice and keep it going in the face of adversity. A note. I suggest that you listen through the whole book before starting your own daily practice. It will serve you to have gotten a sense of the elements of practice, the types of practices available to you, and the challenges you're likely to face before you launch your own daily practice. It isn't essential that you follow this plan, but I think it's a wise one. Part 1. The Elements of Practice. A daily practice is easier to maintain if it is made up of certain key elements. In Part 1, we'll look at 20 of these key elements of practice. A molecule of water is known to us as water, not as its constituent electrons, protons, and neutrons. It can't be water without those constituent parts, but we experience it as water, not as a collection of entities. The same is true with your daily practice. It is useful to name and look at the elements that make up a practice, but what matters is the whole thing, the practice itself. What is a daily practice? It is a way that you take your existence seriously, one breath at a time, one thought at a time, one moment at a time. It is your daily routine of paying attention to the areas where you have set your intentions. It looks like the silence of deep space filled with the brilliant fire of a single star. It is you spending a significant amount of time every day focused in one direction. Maybe you are focused on writing poetry. Then yours is a daily writing practice. That is the way you turn your passion for creating into poetry. Your writing practice is you attending every day to one of the loves of your life, poetry. You sit there and you write your poems. You do that again tomorrow and again the next day. That is a writing practice. What exactly are you practicing? Being your human best. How exactly are you practicing? By entering the space that you've created and by staying put. And what if you're anxious and afraid? Then you strive to manage that anxiety. And if some fear remains, you practice anyway. Where exactly do you start your practice? You start your practice right where you are. Deficient, proficient, anxious, calm, ready, unsteady. Maybe you would like to start your practice in another place? No, you must start it where you are. Where else can you start it? Maybe a voice in you says, "Why bother?" That is a very powerful voice. It represents your sincere doubt that you matter, that you count. It represents your conviction that all is illusion. It represents your fatigue in the face of reality. Why bother, you hear yourself say. That could easily be a day of no practice. Instead, you counter that voice, you affirm your existence, and you practice anyway. What then are the elements of practice? I've identified 20. Initiation, simplicity, regularity, seriousness, playfulness, honesty, self-direction, intensity, lightness, presence, ceremony, joy, discipline, devotion, repetition, innovation, self-trust, love, primacy, and completion. I'll explain each of these in turn in part 1. You may also want to explain them to yourself, maybe in writing, maybe by addressing the questions I'll be posing at the end of each chapter. That we are discussing 20 elements of practice may make the idea of creating a daily practice seem complicated and daunting, but it isn't. When all is said and done, all those electrons, protons, and neutrons come together simply as water. When all is said and done, your daily practice is simply you paying attention to what you deem important. Learn the elements of daily practice, and then forget them. Just get on with your daily practice. It is only if and when you have trouble with your daily practice that those elements may need to be considered again. If all is going well, you don't need to ask yourself, "Oh, what about joy?" Or, "Oh, what about intensity?" All of that will take care of itself. If your practice is working, you need not think about any elements of practice at all. If it isn't working, then it makes sense to wonder if one of the challenges discussed in Part 3 is making itself known, or if revisiting the elements of practice might be the path to take. Part 2. Varieties of daily practices. In Part 2, we look at a variety of daily practices, or more properly, our basic daily practice used in different ways. Whether you're putting together a creativity practice, a yoga practice, a recovery practice, or a problem-solving practice, the elements remain the same. The content and focus are what make them different practices. Some practices will be more about doing, like writing or sculpting, and some practices will be more about being, like practicing calmness. So one practice may have quite a different flavor from another practice. But in each case, the elements underlying the practice will be consistent. Maybe you are ordinary in a lot of ways, but you can be extraordinary at your daily practice. I've always considered myself to be just average talent, and what I have is a ridiculous, insane obsessiveness for practice and preparation. Will Smith. You build and maintain your daily practice in the following ways. Listen to Part 1 and familiarize yourself with the elements of practice. If you feel so inclined, you might describe each of the 20 elements in your own words so as to begin to own them as ideas. You might also chat a bit with yourself about how the polar opposite elements of practice, pairs like seriousness and lightness, repetition and innovation, and discipline and playfulness, hang together. Taking some time to consider each element of practice in turn will pay dividends in the long run. Listen to Part 2 to get a sense of where you might want to focus your daily practice. You might begin by making a list of possible daily practices. You might then sit with your list and let the right practice announce itself. You might also think through whether some practices on your list want to combine in some way. Your prospective diet practice and your prospective exercise practice, for example, perhaps combining into a daily health practice. Decide if you want to start building one daily practice or if you want to try your hand at multiple daily practices. You might decide simply to focus on building a writing practice, or you might decide to build a writing practice to align with that life purpose choice and simultaneously to build a health practice to align with another life purpose choice. Is it possible to create even more practices than two? It certainly is. But you may want to wait a bit and see how your first practice or two work out before aiming at more. Describe your practice to yourself. What exactly will it look like? What are its goals and intentions? Will it happen at the same time each day or at a different time each day? If at a different time, do you want to ceremonially plan for it each morning as part of a life purpose morning check-in or in some other way? You might also go through the 20 elements of practice and, with each one of them, explain to yourself the place of that element in your proposed practice. That is, how will you keep your practice simple? How will you keep your practice honest? How will you foster real presence? And so on, down the list. Likewise, you might visualize yourself living your practice by trusting yourself, imbuing your practice with ceremony, and taking other self-supporting actions. Aim for getting as clear and concrete a sense of your proposed daily practice as you can. Implement your practice. After you've finished this book, pick a day, sooner rather than later, and begin your daily practice. If you don't manage to begin it that day, set the intention of beginning it the following day. Get started and try your best to have your practice become a daily activity. If you find yourself having trouble getting to or sticking with your daily practice, revisit Part 3 to see if you can identify what challenge is getting in the way. Then, think through what you might try to do in order to meet that challenge. Monitor your practice. What are you liking about your practice? What aren't you liking? Is your practice serving your intentions? Is there some element of practice that feels missing? If you feel like it, and if it makes sense to you, you might keep a journal as a place to monitor your practice. In it, you might keep track of your goals, if you're setting goals, and you might chat with yourself about what's working or not working. You might also use your journal as a place to record if you miss a day of practice, to think through why you missed it, and to pledge to return to it the next day. Make changes to your practice. Your daily practice may work well from its inception, but as likely as not, it will need some tweaks along the way, and it may need some quite significant changes. You may need to switch out the physical place where you practice, the length of time you practice, and even the nature, focus, and content of your practice. Try to strike a balance between giving your initial conception a chance on the one hand, and promptly making those changes you deem necessary on the other. Address any challenges that may arise. It would be lovely if your daily practice felt easy, but it may not, at least not in the beginning. Challenges will almost certainly come up. So you want to be careful not to use feeling challenged as an excuse to drop your daily practice. Do an honest job of identifying the nature of the challenge. Think through what changes might be sensible to make and implement those changes. Treat challenge as a natural part of the process. Accept that you will need to honestly notice what is going on and deal promptly with any challenge that may be derailing or threatening to derail the process. Resume your practice if you stopped it. If you miss a day, simply start again the following day without fuss or drama. But if you begin to miss many days, which can easily turn into months and forever, then you need to mindfully, intentionally, and formally begin again. A good procedure is to pick a number of days that you can miss without considering that a problem or a crisis, say 2 days or at most 3 days. When you reach that number, make a special point of returning to your practice the next day. Employing this simple tactic may make the difference between keeping your practice alive and losing it. If you've set up multiple daily practices, follow the aforementioned steps for each one. Your first practice may be working beautifully, and your second practice may not be working at all well. Each practice will have its own requirements, demands, and challenges. Try not to use the thought, well, at least one is working, as an excuse to throw in the towel on your other practice. That second one is almost certainly worth saving. Your multiple daily practices are likely serving multiple life purpose choices, and each daily practice is valuable in its own right. Pay good attention to each of the daily practices you've inaugurated. Be in it for the long haul. Your daily practices provide lifelong benefits. My hope is that you experience their value and want to have at least one daily practice in place at all times. But life can throw us curveballs. Can you envision a strategy for reminding yourself about the value of a daily practice when some crisis strikes and you lose all appetite for practicing? Spend a little time right now answering this question. Since you're unlikely to be in the mood or have the wherewithal to think about saving your daily practice when you are in the middle of upheaval. Institute a daily practice as part of Kirist living. Kirism neither spells out nor demands any particular or necessary practices. Each Kirist has the task of inventing his or her own best practices, but I do strongly suggest that creating and maintaining one or more daily practices is a smart way for Kirists to support their intention to live their life purposes and to coax meaning into existence. To get a sense of the connection between creating and maintaining a daily practice and living a Kirist life, please visit kirism.com. What distinguishes someone, say an actor, who maintains a daily practice from one who doesn't? The actor with a daily practice takes his craft more seriously. He takes looking for roles more seriously. He takes the production he is in more seriously. He takes his preparations more seriously, whether those preparations involve having new headshots made, creating a personal website, or mastering accents. Practice is a way to make use of your mind. Mind and practice go together. Many roads lead to the path, but basically there are only two: reason and practice. Bodhidharma. Each day he decides where he will make meaning investments, and then he actively makes them, either in support of his career or in support of the rest of his life. He doesn't make a fuss about auditions, he simply auditions. He doesn't make occasional phone calls in support of his career, he makes them regularly. He solemnly swears to find good roles, even if they are few and far between, and honestly appraises his efforts, redoubling them when he finds that he hasn't been active and persistent enough. In these and similar ways, he lives his daily practice. Part 3. Challenges to daily practice. Maintaining a daily practice can be as easy as getting to your writing, getting to your online business, or getting to your yoga mat every day, without fuss, without resistance, just because you want to be there, and there's nothing you'd rather be doing. To have that sort of relationship to daily practice is a blessing, but it is one that eludes many of us. Most people struggle to maintain their daily practice, and the vast majority ultimately let go of their daily practice, even if they've been able to maintain it for months and years. This happens because powerful challenges arise that erode their ability to show up. In Part 3, we look at 18 common challenges to daily practice. This is not the complete list of possible challenges, but it represents a good sampling of those you're likely to encounter. Your tasks, if you want to maintain a practice that is slipping away, are the following. 1. Admit that your practice is in danger and needs real attention. 2. Name the challenge and identify what's going on. 3. Implement a plan for dealing with whatever you've named and identified. 4. Resume your practice, even if you can't quite identify what's going on, and even if you can't fully fix the problem. Better to have a leaky, intermittent, problematic daily practice than no practice at all. But better still to have one that works well, one where you identify, address, and remedy any problems as they arise. To deal with those challenges, you'll need some strategies at your disposal. In working with clients, I tend to bring up a particular handful of such strategies. I don't hand them a checklist. Rather, the list is somewhere in my mind, and depending on the person, the situation, and the challenge, I'm more likely to bring up one strategy or another. Here are the 7 that I employ most often. 1. A cognitive approach. I advise clients that their primary goal with respect to the thoughts they think is to think thoughts that serve them. I explain what thinking thoughts that serve you means and provide a bit of an array of tactics for achieving that high bar goal, including the simple 3-step tactic of hearing what you're thinking, disputing those thoughts that aren't serving, no thought, you are not serving me, and substituting a more affirmative or useful thought. If you're interested in this particular approach, please take a look at my book, 60 Innovative Cognitive Strategies for the Bright, the Sensitive, and the Creative. 2. A ceremonial breathing and thinking approach. A good way to marry the physiology benefits of deep breathing with the psychological and emotional benefits of right thinking is to drop a useful phrase into a deep breath, saying or thinking a portion of the phrase on the inhale and the remainder of the phrase on the exhale. I've dubbed these breath and thought bundles incantations and described a dozen particularly useful ones in my book 10 Zen Seconds. You can increase your motivation and reduce your experience of anxiety by using incantations like, I trust my resources, I feel supported, I embrace this moment, or any incantation that you dream up yourself. 3. An anxiety management approach. Anxiety makes us want to flee an encounter and leave our daily practice. One solution is to possess some anxiety management tools that you've tested out and know work for you. Many kinds of anxiety management tools are available to you: relaxation techniques, guided visualizations, discharge techniques, where you expel anxiety through movement, reorienting techniques, where you turn away from the stimulus that's raising your anxiety level and turn toward a neutral stimulus, disidentification techniques, similar to the idea of detachment in Buddhism, and many others. Acquiring one or two of these techniques is likely a must. For more on this approach, I'd recommend my book, Mastering Creative Anxiety. 4. A focused journaling approach. This problem-solving journaling technique is made up of the following 8 steps. 1. Identify.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?